Well, we're back. This time at a new location. I do have a good internet connection. Hopefully, it's not too windy. I have the windscreen on the mic. So, welcome to Satsang Part 2. Um, Hopefully, some of you will come back to join me. Um, Managed to get here nice and quickly and get restarted in about a half an hour. Not quite sure why the connection was so absolutely horrific, but it just kept going up and down and up and down and up and down. Not sure why, and I wasn't quite in the mood to get on the phone with the internet company to try to find out. Because as you know, when you get in those kind of things, you get put on hold and bounced around from place to place. So, hello again. Hello, Mello. Hello, Kamal. Hello, Cheryl. Again, I apologize for the bad connection. I've been trying to find alternative solutions, but as you know, I run this almost as a not an official nonprofit, but as a nonprofit. I keep everything to the absolute minimum in cost, so I can do lots of stuff for free. But the end result is that sometimes it would really be nice to pay more and be at some place where I get like fiber optic for this kind of thing. So, that's the trade-off. That's what happens when you live like a monk. So anyway, welcome everyone. Those of you who are coming back and joining me again. Everybody's saying it sounds a whole lot better. Yeah. So it was completely the internet service. I thought it might be the camera interface I was using, but that wouldn't have affected the sound. So I'm using my hotspot sitting outside, which I like to do anyway, but it's so much nicer to have it in the controlled environment with the perfect mic and everything. All the equipment I've accumulated over the years. So we're back. And I have no idea what the questions were from before. So if you asked a question and it didn't get answered, or you didn't hear the answer because it was all messed up, just post it again. It's actually quite a beautiful place I'm sitting in. Over to let me see if I can show you guys some of it. It gets too dark and see. Nah, it's hard to see because that's across the parking lot. It's the Blood of Christ Mountains, Sangria de Cristo Montañas, which is this beautiful red color, especially as the sun goes down. It's blood red. I mean, I got why the Spanish named that. That wasn't, of course, what the natives, the Native Americans did. Right over there behind me. Let's see if you can see that. Again, it's off in the distance. You can't see it. That's the ruins of an entire Pueblo village that had several thousand people as residents, and that is the remnants of a cathedral they built. Well, they didn't build it. When the Spanish came, the cathedral was built after they had enslaved them, right, and put them to work doing God's work. So it was actually a huge undertaking. Of course, all natural stone and adobe from here, because that's the building materials that they've always had. So Cheryl says hello again. Kiran says hello again. Ava, Daryl, may grace enter and abound. Hi GP, you're coming through loud and clear. Many thanks for starting over, Mark. Oh, you're welcome. I hate to not do it, right? Even those days when I really can't, right? For something comes up and I can't be here, I don't like it. This is my favorite thing to do. It's not that I'm so dedicated, believe me. I'm not that disciplined. I just do what I love, and this is what I love. So Vanyashi says, thank you so much for your answer. It was really helpful. Got most of what you said regarding the fatigue. Good, good. And Cheryl said, when I'm triggered by things in the world, and oh wait, somebody I had one with Red Rose. Red Rose for you, and one for you too. I was wondering, what is a good way to soothe the energy system after having major anxiety? I feel very sensitive to everything right now. Rest, lots of water. Those are practical things. Walk, use the body, exercise, because we live a very sedentary life. Like right now, look what I'm doing. I'm sitting on my butt, right? And I spend a lot of time with writing and producing videos and that sort of stuff, right? So it's a sedentary life. And anxiety is an energy buildup in the body, and so a good way to do walk, right? Walk it out, a fast walk. Get your heart rate up a little bit. Give your body action to do. If you've ever seen some of the nature films of animals after a traumatic event, like they've been chased by something, or even especially when the prey is caught and manages to get away. And also, I've seen films of when they've tranquilized animals in order to tag them and stuff for humane purposes. That after they begin to come to again, you'll notice their bodies start shaking and their legs start moving like this. That's the discharging of the energy. So that would be a good way to do it. That would be my first thing is move, right? Dance, right? Right? Do push-ups, or walk, right? Give the body permission to discharge the extra energy, because what an anxiety is you're in the fight or flight mode. But because it's anxiety, right? And anxiety is always amorphous. It's always about what might happen. It's never about what is happening. And therefore, you've got a traumatic, you've got the setup for a trauma. Because the trauma is when the body goes into fight or flight mechanism, but it can't do either, right? Which you can't, because you can't run from or fight an imaginary or an anticipated problem, right? So when it begins to come down again, that energy is there. Let it discharge. Find a way to discharge it through some physical activity. I also recommend EFT for that, because that is also a physical engagement. You do just know what an anxiety is. And don't just try to sit there or to contain it or something. Let your body move. That would be my first recommendation. Using EFT would be my second. Those are the best ways. You can't discharge trauma, which is what it is, without engaging the body in some way. That's not the time to meditate, right? After the energy has been discharged, then to go into a meditation where you're creating an inner space of calmness and relaxation. But don't. A lot of times people, okay, I'm going to do this in order to get back into that calm space. But the energy hasn't been discharged yet, so you're actually imposing something on it. Okay, so bear that in mind while you're doing that. Does that help, Red Rose, for you? Red Rose for me? Thank you. And if for some reason you do that and it's still there, it means that the anxiety itself, that is the trigger to the anxiety or the anticipated future event, right, is still active, maybe on a much more subtle level, but is still active. At which point I would start tapping, using EFT to tap on the future, to tap on this idea of being unsafe in the future, and bring yourself right to this present moment. Because what you'll discover is, in the present moment, almost all of the time, you're safe. Almost all the time. And that when we're not feeling safe, it's almost never because there's some real threat right here. It's always an anticipated threat in the future. So, Cheryl asks, when I am triggered by things in the world and go into fear of a 1984 future, what's the best way to let go of fear of resistance and come to acceptance of what is while emotions are high? This is a hard one because it's not completely false, right? It doesn't take much um, examination to recognize that there are forces in the world that are quite despotic and tyrannical in nature, and in fact, the whole world is operating under a system. As many of you know, I'm no fan of capitalism, not because free market interchange and stuff like that. And if it was just your local businesses and people doing that work, but this is not that. This is way, way, way beyond that, and it is by its nature despotic. It is not cooperative by nature. It is selfish. It is, capitalism is simply private ownership of resources, production, and distribution for profit. That's it. Nothing else outside of that is allowed. So everything has to be privately owned, which is incredibly selfish, not shared, and everything has to be engaged in for profit. So there's a system of thought. There's the egoic tendencies. There's the three poisons: ignorance, delusion, and greed, that are all at work, right? So we can't just turn a blind eye to that. We have to be very powerfully present with that, but we have to let go of our fear and our resistance, right? Now, when I say let go of resistance to what is, I don't mean this tacit acceptance of what is, right? It's more like Gandhi. Gandhi was not resisting what was happening, right? Pretending it wasn't there or trying to push it away, right? But he was resisting the morality of it, right? That this is, right? So he was not afraid, right? That is, in general. I mean, I'm sure there were times in it when he was afraid of what was going to happen, but he wasn't resistant in just trying to push things away, right? There's an internal resistance, and then there's the external resistance. When I talk about letting go of resistance, I'm talking about letting go of resistance to your own feelings, to not try to force yourself into a particular pattern, to not try to suppress what's actually going on inside of you at any given moment, right? So when you do that, there's a space that opens up inside of you. Now, what that does is the less amount of resistance there is to your own feelings, the more wisdom and intelligence are available to you to know what's actually happening and how to best resist it if it's not what it's supposed to be. And it's not. We don't have a world right now that is based on love and equality and sharing. Exactly the opposite, right? That's the dominant system in the world. So start by simply letting go of. Remember that our awareness of something and our fear of it are two very different things. So we're aware that there are these forces in human consciousness at this stage of its development that are despotic by nature. Okay. I'm not going to resist that or pretend that isn't there. I'm also not going to resist my own feelings about that, right? This isn't right, right? This is, we can do better than this, for sure. We can do much better than this, right? And so now it's simply there's the event, and my reaction is one of fear. Now, that fear is for an anticipated future, right? It's not here yet, right? We're seeing the telltale signs of it, but it's not here. And that fear is based on your own sense of powerlessness. So the first thing you do is you drop your resistance to your own feeling of powerlessness. To a certain extent, every human being is powerless, right? We're all vulnerable. Right? So when you come to terms with that and you stop resisting it, a strange paradox takes place. And that is you begin to feel your power. To honor our own vulnerability is to become the master of it. You become powerful. If you own it, right, it no longer controls the way you think or the way you act. It's just another fact that you have to deal with, like the sky is blue. Right? Yep, I'm vulnerable. I can be hurt. I can be killed. I can be brushed aside. All of those things are true, right? Right? To the body. Now, acknowledging that, not suppressing that, completely owning your own powerlessness is power. Because you're not resisting what is. Right? You're following that? When you resist what is, you lose your power. When you completely embrace what is, you are in the most powerful position that you can possibly be. And from there, you begin to become fearless, which means you're powerful. You can't control somebody who's without fear. The transcending of fear, right, doesn't mean you get conditions in just the right way so that there's nothing to be afraid of. That's what we've been trying to do, and that's why this has happened. Right? We have been trying to produce a world that is totally without danger, and the end result is we've given away our freedom, we've given away our power, because we can't do that. You can't do it, right? So again, acknowledge that, right? That's what it means to let go of fear. Letting go of fear doesn't mean you get rid of it. It doesn't mean it's not there, right? You've let go of it, and you've completely accepted it as it is, and all the reasons it's there. Now, here's what's important. Do not be feeding yourself images of what could be a 1984 future. Right? We have no idea what's actually going to happen, right? I still think some incredibly huge disaster is going to happen, which is going to trigger the greatest leap forward in human consciousness in history. That's what I think is actually going to happen. Right? But it is going to be one of those things where you're really squeezed, right? Because it takes a lot for us to let go of our egoic clinging to the things that we think are going to make us safe, but in fact aren't. Right? That's actually what's symbolized by in the Bible in Exodus, or is it Genesis? Exodus, I think. Moses talking to God in the burning bush, and Moses is holding a staff. He's a shepherd, right? That's what he leans on. He uses it for finding holes. He uses it for bringing sheep back into formation. I mean, it relies on this. This is like the staple of his. Be very difficult, Otherwise, they search for holes. That's why it's the big long staff, right? And God says to him, "Throw down your staff." Okay, let go of that staff. And what happened? It turned into a serpent. Now, the metaphor is not that a serpent appeared, right? And then God said, "Pick it up," and it became a staff again. Now, what that illustrates is what we have been leaning on to support us has actually been biting us. So now I throw that down, I let go of it, and suddenly I see it for what it actually is. It hasn't been something that I can rely on. And that seeing is what is meant by God saying, pick it up. And when now he picks it up, because he's now seen what's really happening, it again becomes a staff. It becomes, there's this fresh insight and knowledge that he can rely on, right? It's not the same, of course. He threw down that and he picked up the genuine understanding. Right? So I can't remember why I got off on that. Right. Because we have been relying on circumstances and governments and that sort of thing to, quote unquote, keep us safe. We have sold off the power that we actually do have. And so take that staff back to yourself. Right? Right? Don't be projecting in the future what might happen. Don't even allow it in, because we don't know. Nobody knows. Right? Leave that to the science fiction writers to have some fun with. Right? Nobody knows what's going to happen. Right? People have all sorts of ideas about it, but you can be absolutely sure, right, that underneath all of this is the bubbling up of the true meaning and nature of love, because that's the reality. We've created another reality, right, which is part of the process of consciousness evolving. It's created this whole world, which is quite in dire straits. Right? But that's not the actual end of the story. There is no end to that story. Right? It's not, right? It's not like everything's going to blow up and it's going to be oblivion. It's not true. Consciousness is waking up to itself, or we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't. So set aside all those ideas if people are telling you that the science fiction novels and some of the even really well done movies are saying, because nobody knows, and it's not going to be like that. But I can say that. Don't believe me. Come back here where you are. When you become aware and conscious of your own individual evolution, of your own growth and expansion of your own consciousness, you can turn around and look and see that's what's happening out there as well. It's probably a time in life you were very selfish, you were very hoarding and that sort of thing. Hurt people, betrayed people, lied to people. We've all done it. Okay? But we transcended it. Some wisdom emerged and grew in us to the point where we didn't have to be forced to not do that anymore. We didn't have to have a fear of consequences, a fear of hell, right? If the only reason you don't do something is for fear of consequences, it's not really moral. There's no wisdom in it. It's fear, right? But when you see for yourself, the heart opens. There's an empathy, and you recognize the harm, the pain you've caused others. That seeing of love is the awakening of consciousness. That is what the governments, these powerful people and super corporations and the like, that's what they're not seeing. They have completely numbed themselves. At some point, those hearts are going to break open. They're seeing the consequences of our own actions, and that is the birth of wisdom, and that's the genuine end of the world that has been predicted for millennia. So I'll get off this subject for now. It's kind of long-winded. I didn't think I was going to go on that long about it, but thank you for that, Cheryl. Please let me know if that's helpful. Banyashi, thank you so much for the answer. Really helpful. Got most of what you said regarding the fatigue. Good. If I missed anything, I just have to ask again, everybody. We're kind of start do-over. Do-over. Hello, Ursula again. Hello, Penny again. John again, take two. Yep. Tatiana. Hi, Tatiana. You didn't miss much this time because everything got messed up. Robert in Nevada. Cheryl, I believe I got most of your answer to the question about using EFT or Kriya Yoga pranayama, to discharge trauma, must be focused now on not focused on now, not the future. Yeah. And remember, EFT, pranayama, various kinds of yogas and the like, they have their place in terms of health, in terms of stabilizing the nervous system, in terms of creating an inner environment that is much more flexible, because it's our lack of flexibility that gets us stuck, right? But they cannot reveal who you are. Nothing can. I don't care what it is, whatever practice, meditation, plant medicine, any of it. They cannot reveal who you are. Right? They can have a very profound and positive effect, and they can make you more pliable and flexible and open. They can do that, but they cannot reveal who you are. Only you can do that. And the only way to do it is this way, this kind of inner inquiry that asks the question, who is the one hearing? Who is perceiving? Who's witnessing? Who am I without all the conditioning, without anything extra added? That's the only place where you can truly discover who you really are, and that's the only place that where you transcend all fear, all doubt, all self-concern. You completely transcend the false self. So John says, fully agree with the walking suggestion. I started walking an hour per day at the start of the COVID, and now would not miss it for anything. Yes, use the body, right? It builds up energy. What's a great way to energy? Exercise of any kind, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It's harder these days. I love to go to the gym because I love all the machines and the weights and stuff like that. And so it really sucks not being able to go to the gym. Thank you so much, says Red Rose. Thank you to you. Rosario, thank you, GB, for your love to be with us in spite of all difficulties. Life has difficulties, doesn't it? Right. If you get upset about it, well, then you've created your own upset. Life never promised me that it was going to be easy or fluid or anything, right? Well, actually, it did promise going to be easy, but I've decided what I thought easy was going to be. Oh, life is easy, right? Okay, so I had all my little checklist, and of course, life has no obligation to conform to my checklist, right? So, hey, life is hard. Life is hard. No, it's not, right? Just abandon. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Mello says, hey, GP, up as well. Is it possible to be completely free from psychological fear? How? Yes, it is. Sounds like you might already be answering it, though. Yes. There's different grades of it, right? EFT, meditation, those are always to be free of psychological fear means you have to recognize the fear that is being created by the mind and isn't actually here now. It is completely imaginary. But we're so used to thinking about what could go wrong and all the ways in which we've got to compensate, and we're bombarded with it. Media just bombards with us with all the things that go wrong, how you're not safe and you can't do all these things, right? Creating in our minds imaginary scenarios that the body then reacts to with fear, because the body can't tell the difference. If our attention is really on horrible things, the body will sense that as an actual event taking place, because the body's always in the now. It doesn't know the past or the future. Right? It's always reacting whatever happens to be present. It reacts. So seeing through psychological fear, that it is completely a construct of the mind, and that we've just been habituated to believe it, right, will progressively bring you to a place where there's an inner harmony And your body now is, because it's free of that, you'll feel fear only when there's something to fear, right? Now, you can only get so far with that, which is what I was talking about earlier, right before your question. And that is, as long as I have identified with the body mind, I will know fear. When consciousness has identified with the finite form, the sense of a separate self, it is inevitable that there will be fear, because the separate self sees itself as separate. Me, world, got to deal with it. Everything's a relationship with it. Everything is this playing off this, and I will never ever actually feel safe. I can't, right? Because the false sense of self can't be safe because it's not real. And I don't mean what I mean by not real is we believe this self-image to be who we are when it's just a self-image. My belief in it turns it into a solid reality, and I act it out as if it's a solid reality. And so I feel like a separate self, limited, mortal, stuck, defensive, even though that's not what I actually am. So when you discover that that's not who you are, and that is the ground of all the psychological fear that rests on top of it, you can get pretty close, through what I would say various kinds of techniques and the like, but you cannot eradicate it, be completely free of it, to use your words, until you have removed that from which it has sprung, and that is the sense of being a separate self. So the ultimate answer is find out who you are. Consciousness has no fear. Consciousness can experience fear. It'll experience the fear of the body. You'll notice that the body is afraid, but it doesn't touch consciousness any more than the clouds touch the sky. Little by little, what happens, though, is that the more and more you are established there, even the fears of the body disappear, because the body doesn't really have fear. It's just a reaction. Every now and then it'll jump for something, hear a loud noise, or a sudden motion or something like that. But that's just that doesn't cause any psychological residue whatsoever. It's just pure experience. And in fact, consciousness remains absolutely still, which eventually means the body doesn't even feel it anymore. It just responds. Right? So knowing who you are is the answer. Right? And in order to know who you are, I can't tell you who you are. You can't conceive of who you are. You cannot perceive who you are. You cannot have any concept whatsoever of who you are. Whoa, what if we get a rainstorm? Because it's just a concept. And a concept, by definition, is going to be limited, right? A thought is a reduction, a representation of something, right? How do you represent consciousness? You can't. So the process is one of becoming absolutely clear about what you're not. The question from Muji is perfect. Can the perceiver be perceived? And Nisargadatta gave us a beautiful, simple rule of thumb. If I can perceive it, it can't be me. Right? If I'm perceiving something, there's clearly the subject-object relationship. I'm the subject, it's the object. So it's not me. Okay? So how do I perceive the subject? Right? I can't step aside from myself and perceive me the way a tree, this computer here. I can do that. Subject-object relationship applies. But when you're talking about knowing yourself, the subject-object relationship doesn't apply. So how does the subject know itself? Well, if you really grasp the significance of what I'm saying, it means that There is no thought, experience, no bit of knowledge, no study, no books, nothing in the world that can answer that question. Because all study, all books, all knowledge, all human knowledge is subject object. It is the description of one thing in terms of another. It is always point of reference, perception, and all of that, which means since that which you actually are cannot be perceived, right? None of that knowledge applies to you. So in one fell swoop, we have completely eliminated the entirety of human knowledge as a as a as a useful reference for knowing who I am. That, by the way, is the meaning of Advaita Vedanta. The word Vedanta means the end of knowledge, and this is exactly what it is referring to. That knowledge is relative, useful but relative. It does not tell you who you are. So, how do you know who you are? Well, you can't. Can you perceive yourself? You cannot know if by knowing you mean, how do I describe myself? You can't. You're one without a second. So it means there's a different path to be taken. What is that path? Well, start with the simplest bit of true knowledge, not relative knowledge, but absolute knowledge, subject knowledge, non-phenomenal knowledge that you have. And that is, I am. I exist. Now, you don't have to refer to anything for that, do you? You just know. You are, and you know you are. Now, that sense of knowing, of your own intuitive sense of being, put all your attention there. At first, that'll be difficult, right? because the habit of thought is, when I start looking at that, is pictures and images of who I am. We'll have concepts about it, all sorts of spiritual. Oh, it's pure awareness, it's pure consciousness. Put all of that aside, because those are secondary too. Absolute awareness, Buddha nature, throw all of it out. Right? At this point, none of those are needed. Right? No teaching is needed. Right? You don't need a teacher. I mean, you're looking at you, and you're the only one who sees you. Right? But you don't see yourself subject object. You see yourself completely non-phenomenally. Do you know that you are? And are you aware that you are? Of course. Right? Now, is there something that is aware? Well, that would be something also that would be perceived, right? So that has to be eliminated. So you're not something that is aware. You are awareness itself. Formless, timeless, dimensionless, spaceless. Awareness itself. That's what's meant by pure awareness. But when people say pure awareness, we abstract it. Oh, pure awareness, start thinking about it. Right? No, it's you. That sense that's hearing my words right now, is that not awareness? Of course it is. That's you. Check, make sure I got battery. Oh, battery's doing good. Okay. That's you. So you say awareness, people start trying to imagine awareness. Don't, you can't. It's you. Pure awareness, the great I am, Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, God. They're all names for me. You. When your attention remains there, of course it's going to go in and out because you got to do stuff, but when the predominant focus of your attention remains there, something begins to unfold all by itself. You don't have to do anything. At that point, it's completely effortless, right? There's some effort to keep reminding yourself, oh, that's not me. I'm perceiving it's not me. And your attention comes back here, right? But at that point, what more can you do? Nothing. You're done. Seeking is over. You just are. You just are. And notice it's effort. It is effortless. To be is simply effortless. So all the effort is simply removing attention and seeing through all the thoughts that we've identified. And they get subtler and subtler and subtler. So Oh, I did go off on that. Well, I want to. I like that. Everything is great, says Mary. Faith, Faith. Hi, Faith, Faith. I think you might be new. I think I remember, but maybe not. Hi from Algeria. Wonderful. Sir, I would like to know the way to create, pray from a non-duality position, not by programming the mind or something similar. Namaste. Beautiful. I love that question. And you say create, pray. Well, for me, prayer is non-duality of the heart, right? There's a surrender to something greater than yourself. Right? What you find when that prayer consummates is that the greater than yourself they've been praying for is actually your true self. God is a word for the true self, but it's not the self you thought you were. That can never be God. Right? So that disappears, and what's left is nothing but God. And you find that that's all there's ever been. Right? We've called it God, and then that's gotten all sorts of meanings attached to it. It's the true self. It's the true being. It's Buddha nature. There's a million different ways that you'd like, that you can use to describe it, to capture it, to convey it, right? But everybody has their own definition of it, meaning for it, right? So, from a strictly non-dual position, there's no desire to create. There's no will to create. Creation just happens because that's the nature of consciousness. Right? Consciousness is not, while when we look at pure consciousness, we see that it's absolutely peaceful. It's absolutely still. No movement, no nothing. But it's consciousness. It's not a thing. So what does consciousness do, for lack of a better word? Well, it's conscious. Right? And what's it conscious of? Itself. What else is there? That consciousness of itself is what we call creation. Right? What you call you, is consciousness thinking or pondering itself. Like, the dream you have at night, it's all you. Every character is you. There may be faces of friends of yours, but in that dream, it's not your friends, it's you. It's your impression of them, your images of them, your memories of them. Right? All your experiences are completely and totally subjective. Subjective made manifest in the appearance to consciousness of form. But it's not separate from consciousness, is it? Your dream is not separate from you. It's not this event you've kind of stepped into, right? And in the morning you wake up, you completely let it go because there was nothing really there. It was all just experience. So notice, this isn't programming, right? We're not trying to, raise our vibration or change the mind, right? So now, that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as desire, nothing to manifest, nothing to create. It just means that now you're not the creator anymore. The you thought you were is not a creator. It was actually created. So the you, from the completely non-dual position as pure consciousness, desires arise within it. But there's no attachment to those desires. Right? I mean, everything around it, the universe operates on desire. All of life operates on desire. So it isn't a personal possession. It isn't something that you own. It's not something that you're responsible for even. It's simply a natural phenomenon that's arising because of this particular universe that consciousness has self-created. But remember, creation in consciousness is not an act of volition. It's not conscious thinking going, I think I'm going to make that, because the moment consciousness thinks that, it is. Because the manifest reality is the thoughts, you might say, right? Or the self-image of consciousness. Right? So every desire, every thought, every experience, every motion, every object is a cosmic event. So if there's a desire arising in you, right, The only way to be completely free from the whole idea of not programming the mind and stuff is to not give it to the mind for ownership. Give it back to where it came. Where did it come from? Right? You want to create something. Where did that desire to create come from? Did you create it? No, it just spontaneously arose, didn't it? So the desire itself is growing. I often use the analogy of you're the garden and the desire is just a seed and it's sprouted. You don't even know what it's actually for, right? Let's even think you didn't plant the seed even, right? It's a wildflower or something. And you don't even know what it's going to be. Little thing, and little by little, it begins to shake shape and begin to develop. Now, what do? Right? Can you make it grow? No, it's growing from its own nature. It's growing out of the nature of life itself. What you can do, you can water it, you can love it, you can cherish it, right? And you can also let it have its own life. You can make the environment in which these things, these natural functions of life arise, uh, be as healthy and as open and as loving as you possibly can. And of course, doing that without possessing it. There's no love in possessiveness, is there? Anybody who's been in a relationship with somebody who's really possessive, it's not love, right? So why are we grabbing on and possessing our desires? I gotta have this desire, and we project it. If I don't have this desire, I'm going to be unhappy, and then we're unhappy. Not because you didn't get the desire, because you decided that if I don't get it, I'll be unhappy. You created it in this moment. Right? So praying for something puts it on a different level, which I think is more beautiful. Because remember, our prayer is, right? Prayer is a surrender. Yes, I'm holding this desire, something I'd like to bring into my life. Then what do you do with it? Not my will, but thine be done. You give it up. You acknowledge it. You don't suppress it. This isn't about that. This isn't, taking a vow of poverty or celibacy or not going out or not having any desires. This is nothing to do with any of that. It's recognizing the right relationship with them. So what's the essence of prayer? Surrendering. Not my will, but thine be done. Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, the most beautiful example. Father, he's facing his own execution. And he's, Father, if it's possible, I'd really like to not do this. Is it okay if this cup passes from me? It's okay. I'll pass. Nonetheless, not my will, but thine be done. That's the surrender of a true prayer, right? Yes, I want this. Not my will, but thine be done. I can't. Our minds cannot see far enough to know the value of it, and we don't really even know what sometimes a desire arises in us, and the only reason it's there is it's more like an earthworm, right? The reason the earthworms are there, the way they process, is they make the topsoil, they make the fertile soil. Sometimes some stuff comes up into us and we really want it to happen, it doesn't happen, we're really disappointed, when in fact the only purpose it was there was to not happen, but to bring about a shift in your character. So if you regard everything happening as being life benevolently guiding you towards your ultimate self-realization, then there's this perfect willingness to just surrender it. Just let it go. Not my will, but thine be done. That's the essence of all prayer, right? Until there's no you or my will left, there's only that will. The prayer of the monk, Lord, replace me with you. And that prayer is total. It's a complete and total surrender, and you're not even there anymore. It's this pure awareness, this pure consciousness, this pure contentment. Does that help? Faith? Faith squared? Selena, in all caps, hello again, GP! XOXO from Alberta, Canada. Hello, Selena. Let's see. Hi, G. Hope you're doing well. I have chronic fatigue syndrome and am concerned about losing a disability case, as many docs and judges don't recognize this condition. I have medical and seeking a doctor who may help, but Social Security not taking this seriously. Got it. I got it. Right. That's politically, I can say we have the world's worst medical system. Social Security, you're talking about the United States. That's the problem with it's all for profit. I was talking about earlier, and that is kind of it's the evil of this world. All right, enough enough of that. My side note, I had to get that off my chest. Okay, first thing you do, the very first thing you do is drop the label chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay? I'm not going to deal first with how to deal with the world and its relationship. I'm going to deal instead with your label of yourself. Right? That has been diagnosed. What's actually happening is there's certain conditions going on in your body, right? I want you to just be with those conditions, be with those feelings, but without labeling them. Right? Because the moment they're labeled, our mind it becomes an object in the mind. The mind starts defining you as that, and then starts gathering all sorts of other thoughts around that seem to confirm it. Right? Now, I really want you to get all the help you need, but I'd really like to see you free from it in the first place, so you don't even need the help. So simply be present with what you're feeling in this moment, free of all labels. Right? Don't think of yourself as, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. It's just something's going on in my body. There's some kind of an energetic disruption going on. Something's out of whack. Don't really know what it is. And I'm just going to give my open attention to my body. It's not a problem I have to get rid of. It is something going on that I need to cooperate with. Now that shifts the entire relationship with it. Now, I've not done one on it, but there are many videos you can get some from with EFT treating chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, which is often one of its causes. Right? I even saw Gary Craig, who created EFT. He did a 45-minute session with somebody, and they actually measured their blood before and after. The chronic fatigue syndrome is often fibromyalgia because what it means is the blood cells that collect oxygen have all clumped together, so the surface area is severely limited. It simply cannot bring in the oxygen. About 45 minutes tapping with Gary Craig, and they'd all opened up. The separation, which means, of course, they're now getting adequately oxygenated. So there's one there from Dawson Church, Brad Yates, Carol Look, or Gary Craig. There's some others too, but those guys. See if you can find some videos that they've done about that. I haven't done one. Right? I recommend one to you, but I know EFT is highly effective in healing it. So start without the labels, and then use an energy healing technique like EFT to kind of pierce through the veil and let your body do whatever it needs to do, because it doesn't want to be in that position either, right? You guys are in agreement on that, right? So, but don't try to force it. You've got to work with that energy. This is the Tao. This is the flow of life. It's in that position for a reason, and it needs to be brought to the place where it can drop that reason and let the energy flow once again. Now, on the other side of that equation, right? Let go of any feeling that you are dependent upon any external circumstance for your well-being. Right? We can get very dependent upon these services, and these services should be there. Okay, the United States is horrible about it, but since it's not it may not be as available, your job now is to come to your own sense of freedom about it, your own sense of a deep sense of well-being that is not dependent upon the whims of others. And that's a deeper level of self-inquiry. Now notice I divided these two up because I want you to focus your attention on giving the body what it needs. But on this level, we have to free ourselves from the idea that somehow somebody else holds our destiny. It's not true. If we believe it's true, it will inhibit our actions. It can even rob us of energy, right? So that could be an element that's playing into this. But this belief that I am dependent upon others for my own well-being, right? If believed, will keep you from being able to have access to your inner resources because you think they're not there because you don't have the external support. Right? Now, seeing that will turn the tables. Now it won't be external support at all. It'll be a manifestation of your inner support. So instead of trying to get it from there, you'll find that this begins to reflect your own inner freedom. Right? It may not seem that way at first, but if you just diligently work on making this shift of perception, that it is all yours already and no one can take it away from you, then you will not be afraid or intimidated by what happens out here. And then what happens out here will be the right support. It'll come. It'll be part of the healing process. Because while you're working on it internally, remember, shifting the internal energy around this doesn't just stop here. It goes out in every direction because your body is one with everything. Right? This is one functioning. And so as this energy frees up, it will spread out and that health will spread everywhere. And even in the process, if there's a process by which it recovers, it will be supported. It will be drawing that to it because you can feel it's not the same kind of contracted state of mind, is it? Right? You can feel the expansive, that this is kind of opening the door that, no, whatever I need is coming to me. That's just a fact, right? I was laboring under the belief I was this isolated, scared little thing that I was begging over here for stuff. That's not you. Abandon that sense of self because it's not real. It's not true. Does that help? Detesh Home 85? Georgia B. Hi, Georgia. Hi, GP and the gang. Wishing you a wonderful week ahead. Same to you, my dear. Tatjana. So good to experience the whole satsang with you, GP, and all your kindred spirits. Greetings from Serbia. Snezolia. Wow, Serbia. Your brand, I think you must be new. Oh, this is great. Dale says, hello, GP and all from Massachusetts. Sorry you had to start over. Hoping your internet at home automatically, programmer terms, improves. Oh, you're a programmer. I was once. Automagically. Yes, spell check changed it. Automagically is the correct word. Yep, that was a word I remember. I did programming for many years. My son still runs my company I used to have. Snezolia, if that is your name, greetings to you. I immigrated 25 years ago to Canada from Belgrade, ex-Yugoslavia. Happy to know somebody from Serbia joined. Yes, I don't remember seeing anyone from Serbia before. Dale says, just want to thank you for helping me wake up and find the peace and stillness of knowing who I really am. I haven't had questions for a long time, but it would be nice to chat sometime soon. Yeah, indeed it would. Yeah, indeed it would. Wow. That's what happens. I was just listening to Muji today, talking about that very question that I mentioned at the beginning of this. Can the perceiver be perceived? And the beautiful thing about it, if you begin to approach that, he used to call it the piranha question because it would eat all the other questions. And in this particular interview I saw with him, he said, this is a final question. Can the perceiver be perceived? If you're beginning to move into that question, you're moving into the final phases of your awakening. That realizing I am not what I perceive, right, cuts away, just hacks everything away until there's nothing left but you. But then this question, can the perceiver be perceived? Now I can answer that logically, right? Because of course it can't. The eye can't see itself, a scale can't weigh itself, finger can't touch itself, right? But it's not the kind of thing we don't want an answer for your mind, because then your mind will be, oh, I got the answer now. Perceiver can't be perceived, and we'll talk about it, right? But you won't have the answer. You need the answer. And when you get to that point, the other questions, they do start to fall away. Yes, some practical things come up, right? Stuff going on in the body, circumstance, things we have to deal with, that stuff comes up. But that becomes secondary. That becomes a convention, everyday stuff. It isn't the search. It isn't the seeking. The seeking converges on this place. Can I perceive myself? Can I, the perceiver, and I'm obviously the one perceiving, everything is reporting to me. Can I perceive myself? And if I can, well, then what's perceiving it? And if I can't, then then everything I knew about myself was not true, because it was all based on what I perceived. And I just thought that I was yet one more thing being perceived. The body, mind, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, assumptions, all of that, they're all perceived. But if I can't perceive myself, then nothing I perceive or think or feel about myself is true. You can see how this brings down the curtain. It brings everything to a close. How then do I know me? Who am I really? This imperceivable, this formless, yet it is an entity. There is, I am. That's absolutely sure. This for certain. Put all that aside, just with that, just being with that. It really is the end of the road. There's no place left to go. This is purely not my will, but thine be done. There's done. You're done. How do I know me? That in that space, that question, who am I really, sinks all the way in. And you find there aren't any more questions. Just a sense of calm, a sense of just being. And that's enough. Rodrigo, hi GP. For the sake of curiosity, do you know anything about entheogens like mushrooms, more specifically psilocybin? Yeah, a lot actually. I have good friends who are shamans that do ayahuasca ceremonies and psilocybin mushroom ceremonies, as well as peyote and all sorts. And they've been used, obviously, in religious context for thousands and thousands of years. There's even some evidence that some popping up of it in the Old Testament, because they're a natural phenomenon, and they do have, and can have, a deeply profound effect, like many things do, like EFT does, near-death experiences, really traumatic experiences in one's life can have a profound shift. Psilocybin in particular seems to have an effect that temporarily in males takes away the alpha male competitiveness and creates more community. right? It's clear that it stimulates, uh, our perceptions get shifted and we see things differently. And we discover through that, and I've done plenty of it in my life, we discover through that that our normal way of perceiving is in a bubble. Temporarily, the entheogens break down that bubble, and we see with complete different perception. And so we think we see God in that, and that sort of thing, right? And it's true, it does, but then it closes back down again, right? Back to our normal range. And you can see, people ask me, should I do it? I said, do you have a meditation practice? Are you already seeing that this bubble isn't real, right? Because no matter how many journeys you take, they will not take it away permanently, right? Only the kind of inquiry that we're doing right here and right now will. Yes, it's useful, but there's a point at which they're outgrown, because it's an experience, right? And anything that is an experience comes and goes. If it comes and goes, it's not the reality. It's a temporary shift in perception. Now, the power of those temporary shifts in perception is because it begins to make your normal perceptions dubious. We go, oh my God, things aren't what I thought they were. That's an amazing thing, and that's why it has such a powerful, positive effect on most people, especially they're all totally harmless, right? You can take as much as you want. They're non-addictive. They don't hurt you. They have no negative effects whatsoever. Right? So when you look at it from the point of view of an experience that shifts your perception about what you normally think is real, there's an advantage to that. But then, okay, once that's established, okay, what I'm normally thinking isn't real. The question, what is? They can't reveal that to you, right? Because it's an experience. Attention has to turn towards the one having the experience. It has to go away from all experience to the knower of the experience. And that knowing of the experience, the knower, right, is what cannot be known through any experience. It cannot be perceived. It is you. And you don't experience you. All experience is secondary. And again, it comes and goes. You don't come and go. The attention goes to that which is not coming and going and cannot be experienced. You can't experience space, right? Take all the objects out of space and you can't perceive it, right? It requires objects. So space becomes this relative distance between two objects. Einstein even said, without the objects, there is no space. So our imagination of space is objects. Take all of that out, and what's left? Something, right? You're left. Right? But like space, you cannot be known. And nothing, no experience can reveal that. That's the place you go alone, right? With no resources but yourself. So I think that kind of sums up my whole feeling about that. It does a lot of good. I have no problem with it. It is one of the many. Lost you there, buddy. Where'd you go? It's one of the many temporary paths that are valuable, right? But it is temporary. It's like all dharmas are temporary. It's what Buddha said. Right? They're all relative, right? And at a certain point, they will have served their purpose, and you have to move on. And of course, the ultimate is self-knowledge, because you don't move on. And all of those are for you, right? But ultimately, only you can come to fully reveal you to you. Let's see. Greetings to Touch. I decided to come back from immigration once I decided I couldn't escape from myself. GP teaching is the way that really resonates with me. Trying to promote him here. Well, thank you. Snezalia or Snezalia? Is that, are we pronouncing it? Are we pronouncing that, or am I butchering your name? Snezalia. Wow. Wow. Promoted in Serbia. Who would have thought? Amazing. We have quite a few people from Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, um, that whole Croatia. It's Serbia's right there. Wow, beautiful. John, IGP, I'm peeling and cooking shrimp, so my brother asks the questions. That's great. That's right. Your brother is Rodrigo, right? Tatiana, your words tap into my deep joy. Oh, thank you. Himank, hi GP. What's your opinion on sexual celibacy, semen retention for meditation? Also, what about sun gazing in the moment? Well, I've never been a fan of semen retention. What can I say? I'm not a fan of sexual celibacy. Um, I mean, I've even practiced tantra. Um, it very, very enriching for relationships. I mean, you do have to go beyond the pure physical pleasure and into the intimacy to really get to the depth of that sort of thing. I've heard people talking about semen retention and that sort of thing. I don't really know firsthand. I know that nothing is absolute. There may be some benefit for it, for meditation. Um, but I find most of those things, like vows of celibacy and semen retention, I find them most of the time really to be just a distraction, and uh, and they kind of miss the point. They put your attention more on the technique, and I'm here to put the attention on you, right? In meditation, if the goal of meditation is some kind of state, well, then it might help get you to that state. But for me, the goal of meditation is to get you out of all states to the pure experience of what's actually here, of you as you are, right here, right in this moment. Okay? And that's not a state. That's not something attained. It's when all the things you're trying to attain are gone, and you find what's actually left is me. And that me is peaceful. Right? It doesn't need a state, right? Because states also come and go, right? So what's the objective of the meditation, right? Any objective of a meditation that is not to simply cut away everything that's not me and know me as I am is a lesser process. It's a lesser function. Okay? This is the direct path. This is the path of Advaita Vedanta, of Shankara, of the Abhagavad Gita, the Gita, the path of Zen. This is direct, the sudden path. Nothing extra added. About sun gazing in the morning, I really don't know. I've heard people swear by it. They praise it. They think it's a great thing. I've never really done it, so I can't really say. What I can comment on though is what's the objective, right? You do this practice, you get this result. It's great. So I use EFT to get particular results, right? I do semen retention to get a particular result, or I'm after a particular result, right? And that's fine, right? Notice that it is finite. I do this, I get the result, right? It's done. Do not think that any of these things can bring you to the knowledge of who you are. They can't. They're temporary by nature, right? Look at them all. I do this to get that result. It's finite. It's a closed system. Do this, get the result. Do this or not get the result. You're not doing it right. Struggle a little bit. I either abandon the whole thing because I don't care anymore, or I get the result and it's over, right? It's a finite closed system, right? And that's what you get. Great. You do this. This is what you get. You do not get self-awareness. You do not get enlightenment. You do not get self-knowledge, self-realization, right? So it's okay to have these little things, right? I do this to get this. It's fine, right? But they're not going to. This inquiry is the infinite result, because once you know who you are, and that who you are is forever who you are, it's the end of knowledge, right? It is not something that then has to be replenished later. It is self-replenished because that's the nature of truth. So I'm not negating all of these other things, right? Notice I'm not saying, oh, don't do they're going to interfere, because no, they don't. You just see them for what they are. You do this, you get this result. Great, right? But it's not going to be this result, right? Thank you, Himank. Truth Loops, greetings to you. Penny, I needed this. You are just you. Thank you so much. Ponder that, right? Because notice every thought is always comparing you or contrasting you or adding something, right? But just you and nothing else. Pure being. Just you. When Nisargadatta, one of the first things his guru said to him was, I am nothing but myself. That can be much. You are just you. Needed this much. That can be a koan you just take into your heart and can do the whole job for you. It did. That's exactly what Nisargadatta did. He took that. He just, everything that wasn't him, that he was perceiving, couldn't be him, away it went. Until there was nothing but myself. And I am. And then you find that that self is the I am, not an I am. The I am is the Buddha, the awakened one, self-realization. Nothing but myself. I just am. You are just you. No thoughts. Cheryl, whatever I perceive isn't me. But when I know who I am, everything is me, God. So everything is me, but not by way of perception. Don't mean, question mark, yes, don't mean to quibble about words, looking for clarity. Thank you. Yes, and I saw the question mark, so I knew you weren't saying, hey, this is what I think. Okay. Yes, it's twofold. You cannot come to know yourself as you actually are without negating everything you're not, right? Now remember, perception is based on the idea that what I am perceiving exists independent of my perceiving of it. That is, my knowing is a process by which I find that which is not me. But the problem is, we then think of ourselves as one of those objects of perception. So the first step is to completely eliminate all objects of perception, because I can't perceive myself. Therefore, any object of perception I hold about myself can't be true. And what happens? I come back until there's nothing but me. But this all doesn't suddenly disappear, does it? Right? But now a different kind of inquiry, right? The inward path, Vedanta, the outward path is Tantra. Right? So now it's like, wait a minute. If I'm not what I perceive, then nothing is. Does anything exist independent of my perception of it? Or is the actual substance of it my knowing of it? This is where what appears to be the world and you become not two. Advaita. Right? Vedanta, Advaita, not two. So it is me, but not the me I thought I was. As long as this me is a sense of something perceived, an object of perception, right? Well, then that cannot be one with everything, can it? Because it's just another perception. But Once that has completed, and complete the inward path first, you have to come to the absolute emptiness of your being, at which point that emptiness is now seen to be everything. This is empty, right? That is, it has no inherent self. The self is that which is. And isn't that you? That which knows itself. That's the truth, the infinite, unchangeable reality. And that selfness, because it's not a thing, manifests as form, which appears to have a particular entity or self to it. None of these objects around me possess a self. They reflect the self. But the self is the unknowable eternal substance. Is that making it clear for you? So yes, all of this is me. But first you must know what that me is. A lot of people say, oh, it's all me. We are all one. Well, we can't be one. By definition, it's we. I am one. And this is simply myself, pondering myself. But that self is not an object of perception. That self is the one. Does that help, Cheryl? Great questions. Faith says, thanks. Good. I guess I got it. G. Gudaman. Hey, GP. Thank you. I'd like to invite everybody to give like and share your videos. Greetings from the Netherlands. Yeah, I'm looking at, nobody's liked me. Aren't you liking this? Like and share if you would, to be so kind. Thank you, G. GP, I don't know if this has been asked before, but what is your understanding of demons and entities and negative forces? They exist as beliefs within the general human consciousness, and therefore manifest as if they were actually beings. There are no beings other than you, right? Be they angels or demons, right? Be it God or the devil. Our belief in a separate self that belief is the devil. That's the Antichrist. That is the cause of all mischief. Out of that grows the sense of ego, and that's the ignorance, and out of that grows delusion and greed, which are the three poisons that affect everything. Only my belief in an objective, self-existent, self-sentient evil creates my experience of it. This is this pretty radical thing that I'm saying, and most people will look around. Yeah, look at all in the world. They're evil people. No, they're not. No, they're not. Evil isn't a person. It's a state of mind, and that state of mind is ignorance, delusion, and greed. Buddha nailed it, as he did everything else, right? Delusion. 3 3. Oh, I still got an hour. I'm good. Ignorance, delusion, and greed. Right? When those are taken on and identified and acted out, you get evil. That's the evil of the world. So there are no evil entities. There's only us acting out the separate self, which in its essence is selfish, greedy, fearful, power hungry. In order to compensate for its fear, it grabs and tries to have power over others. These are all they're active in human consciousness because they're not seen. They're not seen for what they are. When we personalize, we make, well, that particular politician is evil. When we personalize it, we're not seeing it. We don't actually see the underpinnings that is supporting it. And by personalizing it, you're giving it a power that it doesn't actually have. You're participating now in the general belief of evil and negative, and the coming dystopia and all of that sort of thing. Right? So again, it always comes back to, what do I see to be true? Right? And completely purging from ourselves all ignorance, delusion, and greed. Right? Then we're free. Then we're free. And then you're the bodhisattva. And then you can free others. To the degree you're free of it, to that degree. Plus, at that point, you won't be mad at anybody, right? You can't be angry at the shark. Oh, no salmon or anybody. You can't be mad at the shark for eating seals. It's what they do, right? So this is until consciousness exposes that to them, they will be acting it out. Which means, you protect yourself from such people. You vote them out of office if possible, but you do not fear them. You do not condemn them. You do not hold them as being evil. There's no evil entity. There's only a state of mind that will make someone do evil, but they don't know they're doing evil. You have to understand that evil operates in the dark. There's no devil getting up early in the morning going, I just can't wait to fuck up people's lives, right? There's nobody doing that, right? It is a distorted view of good. It is good. It is actually love that has become so constrained, right, that it only is concerned about itself. If it's totally just itself, to the point where it cannot even see another person's point of view, it's narcissism. A little bit more, it can see it, but it doesn't care. It has no empathy, right? The lizard people, right? Right? At that point, right, it only cares about itself and its group, right? So some people are narcissists. They don't even care about their group. They don't have a group. It's all them. Others, the narcissism extends to it's me and my people, my culture, my economic bracket, my race. It's all just my. Notice the operative word, my. And the bigger it gets, the less my sounds. My gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And at a certain point, we recognize it as love, right? Right. But that's simply, it can only operate in ignorance. Right? It can only operate by ignorance, delusion, and greed, right? And so when it is seen, and you see it first, right? You see it for yourself, then you'll be able to see it in others without criticizing. You'll know what it is, and you'll keep your distance, but you won't be intimidated and you won't hate, right? Because what does that do? Right. Now it's me and them, right? They're the bad people, right? I've just done the same thing. This me has got to become us. That's got to become one, right? And as that expands, we see it as an increase in awareness, an increase in wisdom, and an increase in love and compassion. So, is that answered for you, Mary? Patricia, hi GP from Vancouver. Hello, Patricia. As you appeared, I was flooded with such generous, loving energy. Wonderful. Thank you, thank you. A deeper revelation from God today. I truly trust myself for whatever is and happens. Yay, yay. So good to hear it. So good to hear it. And let that trust of yourself expand into the trust of life, and expand that sense of self to become not only you trusting, but that which is trusted. That you and the ultimate self are one. And that can be realized from the heart as easily as it can from the mind. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Patricia. Robert Hill. Hi, Mr. G. Hi, Mr. Robert. Can a person heal from any disease using spiritual techniques? Under the right circumstances, yes. Believe me, I used to think any circumstances, and I practiced it that way. But I began to see things a little bit differently. Anyone at any time has the option to be free from suffering. Now, free from suffering means free from resistance, free from forcing life to be anything other than it is, and also having a relationship with yourself that is not, that doesn't see disease as a problem to be gotten rid of, but as an energetic disruption in the flow, to be to be loved, embraced, and listened to. Right? You're wanting to harmonize with the body, right? You can't force it to be anything other than it is, right? You can't force it to act any different. You can't make the cat bark, right? And so working with the body its own nature, right? So disease means there's a disruption in the flow. Something's blocked, something's not right. Either because the environment, it's just not this the best it can do in the environment that it's in, or because it's, I check my battery. Oh, I'm good. Um, uh, something's gotten into the system, but when it is completely freed and not pressured, it has all the power it needs to be able to adjust itself, to at least compensate and often be free of that which is causing it. The spiritual approach is that there is not a dependency on the body for life. There's a recognition of the body and that it is fallible and flawed, and it is integrated into the entire environment, and you don't have any issue with that whatsoever. And you become free from suffering. There's no labels, right? Call it a disease. Oh, get rid of it. It's got a name, it's got a character, all sorts of things begin to get compounded on it. You only experience your body in interaction to the environment. And you want to make you the inner environment that is not toxic, that it doesn't have to defend itself from, that it doesn't have to fix. So you become completely open to that, and then you simply let go of any idea of what should happen, right? Because maybe it's time to die, right? I've been blessed with a very healthy body, right? I just don't get sick. A lot has to do. I did at one time. I should tell you the story. I was like sick all the time up to a certain point. I was about 25 when I finally came to terms with pretty much what we're saying right here. And I really haven't been sick since. It happens, but rarely. I also eat right. I stay out of toxic environments, both toxic people and toxic chemicals and things like that. I don't eat any processed food. I exercise and all that kind of stuff. But I know for a fact that at some point this body's going to die. That is, it's going to stop functioning. I will continue, right? So I'm just helping it, be as good as it can. So the answer is a qualified yes. What you can do is completely make the environment so so pure and so loving and so open that the body has the maximum amount of energy available to it to compensate and eliminate whatever happens to be in the way of it. That you can do. But then there's a point beyond which you simply have to let go and let the body do whatever it's going to do. It has its destiny. It's not your destiny, right? It has its destiny. And just felt a little raindrop. Good thing I'm under the thing here. You may get some thunder and lightning though. So that's why I qualified it. A long time ago, I used to practice metaphysical healing, and and after a while, I began to see nobody wanted to hear me talk about coming to know the truth. They just want to be fixed. Right? And at that point, I realized there was a conflict. They wanted heaven. They didn't want God. Right? And that's why I qualify it now, because there's limits on that. There's all sorts of things you can do to improve health, to improve performance, to all of these things, and they're good. But that's not the ultimate of life. The ultimate of life is to know who you are beyond the body and all of its functions. And the wonder of that is, by doing that, you free the body from all the artificial stuff that's been imposing on it. And it will function very intelligently to do whatever it needs to do to take care of itself. I think that's a pretty good answer, Robert. um, something that still feels a bit incomplete, but it's all that's coming right now. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Kuljit, hello, dear lady. Hello, GP. With regards to your beautiful answer on prayer and surrender, I feel as if surrender and pure awareness are synonymous. Is that so? That's a beautiful insight. Yes, they are. Pure awareness. The only difference is pure surrender. Pure awareness is beyond surrender. There's nothing for it to surrender because it was never holding on to anything in the first place, right? Like space doesn't have to surrender, right? Surrender what? Right? And so, yes, surrender is how we experience on a human level the nature of awareness. There's no preference, not holding on to anything, no issue with anything, right? You're not taking a position. That's awareness, right? That's the pure, natural allowingness that awareness is. It simply has nothing to resist. It is pure awareness. It is just aware, right? So whatever comes, it's aware of. No resistance. Notice the resistance always comes later. You have to first be aware of something before you can resist it. So when a resistance arises, awareness has already let whatever you're resisting in, right? So from that point of view, it doesn't have to surrender. But from our point of view, as we're growing and developing and maturing spiritually, we feel it as a surrendering of our position. The surrendering of our position is ourselves, in fact, manifesting pure awareness. I think that's a good way to put it. How's that, Kojit? Yeah. Tatjana and Snazalia are having a little conversation. Gulsin. Good evening from Turkey. Good evening to you, Gulsin. Don't know actually how to pronounce that perfectly, but Mary says, it appears that we start out with having perceptions of ourselves, but in our own time we must let them go after growing through our experiences of thinking we're separate. Yeah, we have to start out with some kind of a self-image. If not, you're dysfunctional. You're Section 8. You're schizophrenic. You're crazy. You cannot function. So a sense of self has to solidify, right? The problem is it gets so solidified, we think it's who we are, and we don't question it anymore. We don't realize that it is something that's constantly changing. It's coming and going. It's not really who you are. It's how you're appearing. It's the costume you're wearing for the moment because you need a costume in the moment. You've invited to a costume party called life, right? And you have to show up in a costume, right? Now, if you forget it's a costume, it's going to seem like a really hard life. If you remember it's a costume, I take this one. Oh, I need this costume now. Right? But then you begin to realize that the one putting on costumes and taking them off is not at all confined to that costume. As a matter of fact, it's unknowable, right? Take off the costume and what are you? Just me. I can't say, right? Who are you? I have no idea. Tantra says, yes, you are right about, or Tatjana says, yes, you are right about Tantra. It's amazing to go beyond physical pleasure, true union in heaven. Yes, it is intense and incredible physical pleasure, but without any goal for physical pleasure. It's a complete absorption in this moment. The power of now is Tantra. Right? It is a complete absorption in this moment. And if you're talking about Tantra in terms of sexuality, because it's way bigger, as always, the West, we've reduced it down to the most materialistic thing, which is good sex, which it is, right? But it transcends it because it's union, right? Two are becoming one. You are becoming one with everything, and it's not just a sexual partner; it's everything, right? This computer I'm talking about, this microphone. There's the everything becomes this intimate relationship. Everything becomes one. But the one experiences itself as many. And that one experiencing itself as many is the bliss of the one. So it isn't this empty I'm the one thing. It is two as one and the bliss of that. It's very hard to explain. it's very hard to explain, but everything becomes orgasmic because everything is one. Everything is this this interaction, me with me, but not this me, this me. Phil Heath, it's taken me 60 or more years to find this. So beautiful, so simple. Thank you. Wow, welcome, Phil. Fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic. It's worth the wait. Mary says, thank you for the answer about evil. You're welcome. You're welcome. GP, do you think a narcissist can change if he puts up the work of becoming aware of his own of his conditioning? No. Yes. I mean, obviously, you become aware of it. The moment you become aware of it, the narcissism begins to shrink away. Right. The problem is piercing it. The only thing I've seen that can pierce extreme things like that, like extreme greed, extreme delusion, which is narcissism, and extreme ignorance, is suffering. That's the magic bullet. You know, you can only suppress, compensate, anesthetize, or hide that suffering for so long. Eventually it overtakes you. And what happens is, you know, the narcissist gets everything they want, but eventually that doesn't work anymore. They're not charming anymore. They're not handsome anymore. They're not wealthy anymore, right? All of the stuff that has buffered them from the experience of something actually breaking their heart open eventually falls away. If not in this lifetime, the next one, right? Suffering is one of God's great ideas. Because if not, nobody would seek the truth, right? We would go on for thousands of years, like as diva beings, right? Never questioning, well, this is great, isn't it? The way it's supposed to be. That's why the whole delusion of creating material utopia on Earth is so absurd, and why a pending dystopia has such a powerful effect on us to turn inward, right? The nightmare makes us want to dream, want to wake up, not the happy dream, right? And so, yeah, you're right. The narcissist, that is the door that opens up for consciousness, because he's essentially alone, even if surrounded. You think there's people beyond salvation? No, there's nobody beyond salvation. Eventually, because it is conditioning, right? It's temporary. It's going to crack. It has to. It is not. It's not self-sustained. It's sustained by belief, and eventually it cracks. It has to. Nobody is beyond salvation because everybody is the self. Because the truth cannot be the truth cannot be hidden forever, and you cannot change it. Right? The truth is you are the self. You are the infinite one. That's the truth. Can't change it. Right? That's the truth of everyone. So even if the delusion lasts for 10,000 years, 10 million years, it will eventually crack. It has to. It is temporary, right? It's one of the things that comes and goes. And that will come and go as well. Not this lifetime, the next or the next. It will happen. You know, it will. That's all I could say, because it's not true, right? And that's why nothing that isn't true is eternal, right? So there is an end to it. That's why Buddha said there is suffering, there's a cause of suffering, and there's an end to suffering, because it is temporary, it is impermanent. Mr. Miyagi says, hello. Kuljit says, beautiful. Ah, you're welcome. Well, look at that. I got through all the questions. I got people did come back, but nobody liked and shared. Well, maybe I can't see it. I can't tell. Sometimes I don't actually get all the information from YouTube sitting here at my console. So I'm not on YouTube. I'm on a service for doing video live streaming, and it's putting me on there. So, all right. Well, I managed to get through all the questions, and still did 2 hours, even though I did it before. Still did 2 hours. Oh, okay. So, the only encouragement I can give you is to just let yourself fall in love with the process of self-discovery. Let's questions like that, a final question, like, can the perceiver be perceived, really engage you. You know, when Ramana Maharshi, right, which is one of the greatest sages of all time, had his awakening. Within 2 hours, he went from totally unawake to a fully enlightened being, to the point where he completely forgot about his body. They had to feed him and keep him alive. And then he didn't talk for 5 years after that, right? Before he finally came back with enough presence to be able to interact with the world. If people hadn't noticed him and taken care of him while he couldn't take care of himself, we would never have known who he was. But if you read about that account, and there's another more modern guy, Steve Jourdain. For a couple hours, it was the most intense inquiry. For Ramana, he was saying, "I'm dying." Right? It was a panic attack so severe. He said, "I'm dying," and he surrendered to it. Okay, well, this is death. What happens? Death. I'm dying. He would even hold his breath, and so it was this intense focus of attention on nothing else for 2 hours. And all of a sudden, everything just broke, and it was, I'm still here. I am. All gone. The entire thing was gone. But that 2 hours of intensity, and Steve Jourdain, exactly the same thing. Almost nobody knows about him, but the same thing happened. More modern guy, right? He just died like maybe 10 years ago. Totally intense. Just this tense create. So he would actually almost pass out. His focus of attention was so strong because he just needed to know the answer to this, right? That kind of intensity, right, breaks through things, right? It's the kind of thing that it cuts through, right? Now I can't say go be intense, go hold your breath and stuff like that. It comes naturally. Let yourself become increasingly curious about who you really are, not as a remedial thing to try to fix some problems or even get a happier life, but because that who just begins to burn within you. So the disciples, after Christ's resurrection, he met 2 of his disciples, and of course, they didn't recognize him. They didn't believe such a thing was possible, and they were headed off. But after they broke bread, a few things, and all of a sudden they realized exactly what it is. Not just the physical, but the deeper meaning of it. They made the point, did our hearts not burn within us as we broke bread with him, as we talked with him along the way? The process is one. The final questions become final questions because they eat up the other questions. The desire for the ultimate freedom becomes so intense that lesser desires fall away. Nothing else matters. And of course, as that happens, what happens? Attention becomes laser focused, right? And that level of focus and concentration pierces through all sorts of things. Jay asked, was Ramana Maharshi in a state? No, he was out of all states, right? So far out of the states that his body could have died, he would never noticed it, right? So no, yes, awakening can be that intense, right? And from that point on, he was the Maharshi, right? One of the greatest sages of all time, right? Now, you don't have to have that story. I don't have that story, right? That was that particular thing. So we're not trying to imitate that, right? We're just trying to look at what are the key ingredients. The focus on the desire for freedom eliminates lesser desires. The focus of knowing who you are eliminates other interests until, it's like anything. The person who ends up being an Olympic level athlete, or professional level sports player, the amount of intensity and focus and concentration and sacrifice they make for that is huge, right? A dear friend of mine was a competitive ice dancer. 4 a.m, they're at the ice rink. Then they go to school. These are kids as a kid, right? Then they go to school, and then they're ice rink afterwards, right? And then they go home and do the homework, and they do the same thing again the next day. The enormous sacrifices that that people go through because they're single focused, they're one pointed, and this is no exception to that, right? We eliminate the distractions, and the more we eliminate distractions, the more we are focused on that which we truly love, that which is truly important to us, and that transcends the world. Anyway, so it's my little goodbye speech. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you. It turned out well in the end, as it always does. So thank you guys. Namaste.